Hi, this is Bob from Hobby Concepts, and today I'm going to take a look at some 14 scale vehicles that would go nicely with your Tamiya trucks. Now, it's nice to have a selection of things when you're out running your trucks. So Rastar makes a collection of different 1/14 scale vehicles. They're beautiful, super detailed, really nice, with the worst, crappiest radio gear you can imagine in them. So, is it possible to take this thing and make it really run nice? Well, today I'm going to take this Mercedes AMG G63 and we're going to convert it to good radio equipment. Now, it's easy to do. You need a Metal Gear Micro Servo and a Bayer mini speed control. But boy, once it's done, it runs great, looks fantastic. These things are beautiful. This is the Mercedes. I've got like a Range Rover here. I've got a Land Rover Defender. Sitting over on my shelf, I've got a Shelby GT350 Mustang and a Jeep Wrangler Rubicon. Great selection. They're easy to do. Look terrific with your trucks. This is a nice rollback truck load. So anyway, let's take a look at this. I'll show you how to do it. Let's get started. So these vehicles from Rastar are 14 scale. They're basically a toy, but boy, they are a nice toy. They look great. This is the Mercedes AMG G63, and I've got a black one here, and I've got a white one here out of the box. But they look fantastic. They have opening doors. They have full interiors that look really nice. Even the foot pedals are in there. And they have some simple lights. But they come with, obviously, terrible radio equipment. I mean, it's right and left, forward and backwards. They don't operate very well. So the plan today is to put great radio gear in this so that we can use them with our trucks. And they make a wide selection of vehicles. I've got some other ones here. I've got a Shelby Mustang. I've got a Toyota Land Rover, or a Land Rover. And they make a whole selection of different ones. So we're going to go with this G63, which will look great on the back of a Tamiya rollback truck. So I'm going to go ahead and get the body off, and then we'll take a look at what it takes to convert one of these to regular RC. So here we go with the body off. That was pretty simple. There's 4 screws here and 2 on each side, and then this chassis just pops right out. The body has the interior, which is able to be pulled with, looks like 3 screws. And then we've got our headlight and tail lights. So if we look at this chassis, we've got our tail lights here, we've got our headlights here. Actually, a very nice chassis. It has a built-in battery box that holds 5 AA batteries. And actually, I'm going to go ahead and use that for power. If you want to put rechargeable nickel metal hydride batteries in there, you could, or just use regular AA's. I'm sure this thing will run forever on a set of batteries. Back here we've got our drive motor, and then up in front we've got our steering motor. Now, the way these cheap radios work is they just use a command signal to either go right or left. And you'll notice there's not much steering. So what my intention is to pull this all apart and put a regular servo up here. So this front clip is held on with 4 screws here, and it just lifted off. And then you can see this front wheel has some suspension. There's a spring here where it rides up inside the shock housing. So we're going to continue to use that. And then the motor has got 4 screws that hold it in. And you can see it's just a simple motor that turns back and forth, which then moves this back and forth. And there's springs here that hold this. Lift that up. This thing here automatically moves it back to the center. So basically the motor pulls it offside, and when the radio signal stops, it goes back to center. Very, very simple setup. I think I can reuse this steering link, and it fits over the steering like this to turn the wheels. and I think that'll work okay. So we're just going to remove this mechanism. We don't need it because we're going to put a standard servo in here. So let's talk about some of the items that I need to convert this. Pull this out first here. See what we got. Yep. And then this is a little centering mechanism that can also be pulled out. So let me get some other items I'm going to... Oh, one thing I want to mention, the motor, the lights, everything just has simple plugs to unplug. I'm going to go ahead and strip these motor wires and test this motor and see how it performs. But I think we can use the stock motor just fine. I flipped the chassis upside down, hooked up my power supply, and you can see we have a nice motor. Works good. It has a diff, and the diff feels pretty good. So no problem using the stock motor. There is some suspension in the back end and some suspension in the front end. It's very stiff, but it's adequate for smooth surfaces, which is what we'll be driving it on. Now, to convert this, I'm going to use this little tiny metal gear micro servo. The metal gears are great because they won't strip out, so I really don't need a servo saver. And I'll mount this down in here somehow and run a tie rod to the tires. And then for the speed control, I'm going to use this Bayer MFR 1210, which is just super tiny. Very easy to hide it anywhere in the vehicle. I'm going to use the standard battery tray that it comes with, and I'll even use the on-off switch. And so I think the conversion will go pretty easily. We'll tear this apart and get to work on it. But yeah, and the body will fit right back on just the way it came off. Okay, so I figured out what I'm going to do here. I took this tie rod and drilled a hole in it and put one of the small Tamiya balls in it. And this sits right here, slides back and forth. There's a notch right here that keeps it from sliding past that post. So I just put the ball so it wouldn't interfere either direction. And then a servo, I took the servo arm and mounted another ball in it. And then I took two Tamiya ball ends. I took one of the Tamiya grab rails and just did this. Cut a piece of the threaded rod off and just threaded a ball onto it from both directions and made this piece right here, which will now snap over the ball and then snap onto the servo. Now, what that means is I had to cut away some of the plastic in here so the servo would fit. And it will just sit in here like this. You can see I've got a servo tester hooked up to it, so it will now slide that back and forth just fine. The servo's got too much travel, so I'll have to be careful to set the endpoints in the radio. And what I'm going to do is glue a small piece of wood in here to level this out, and then I will put the servo in with some hot glue. Just stick it in there, and that will give me a nice proportional steering control. And then the front end can go back together just exactly like it was, with the same springs and everything to hold the wheels on. Should work really great and was very, very easy to do. So I just basically cut a few small pieces of wood here to glue the servo to and glued them in. And once that's glued in, I'm going to just cut some more small pieces and just kind of wedge it all in here. And I'll just use super glue and just get everything kind of wedged in there super tight. and glue it all together. Won't be pretty, but it'll work great. So in this vehicle I'm going to use one of these FlySky FSI6 radios that I've got. And so I plugged in the radio and plugged in the servo, so you can see now my steering works in servo. So I can attach my link here, and you can see how this bumps up over the top. It's just got too much travel. So I'll press the OK button here and go to the function setup menu and go down to endpoints. And what we're going to do is lower the endpoint almost. Okay, now we're going to lower the other direction. Keep going down here. Whoop. That one's about 60%. Put this one down. A little more. A little more. There we go. Okay, so now you can see that the endpoints are set so that the bar doesn't slide up on the stops. That way the servo won't try to overdrive this and break it. So that's how you set that up. Now I'm going to go ahead and put this front clip back on, and I've taken a look at this. Front clip fits like this. I can actually cut away this material right here in the middle and just leave the two sides, which will give me more room up underneath if I want. I probably won't on this one, because probably what I'm going to do is mount the receiver right here, and the speed control will mount down in here, and then I can still have my body on the same way. So I'm going to maybe do a little surgery on this just to make everything fit better, and then I'll show you how we put it back together. Well, I've got that all set, so now I can assemble this. I've got this spring goes on top here, and then this assembly just sits down in here like that. And that's going to be an interesting project. We'll just prop that up with something. Get a spring on the other side. Drops in like this. Not bad. Okay, and then this assembly just drops over the top, and the axles are captured in there. That may take a little fiddling to get it together. Oh yeah, let's see how that works. I'm going to shut the camera off because you don't want to look at the top of my head when I work on this. So I got that mounted. You can see that we've got our suspension travel is just fine. And now you can see that I've got proportional steering. Now that was actually pretty easy to do. Everything seems to work pretty good. Now we've got to go ahead and get a speed control in it. This is a great little vehicle. It really is easy to work on and nicely made. Now we'll take a look at some of the fun stuff. So I mounted my little tiny speed control in here with a piece of double sticky tape. And we'll do the same thing with the receiver up here. I just cut away the edges of that tray. And now we're going to do a little wiring. So I'm going to use the same battery box that comes with the truck. Why not? It uses 5 AA's, and that's just great. We can use AA's or we can use rechargeable batteries. And so here's my positive and negative lead, so I'll go ahead and just clip that positive one and just make a little lead here. Get my soldering iron. Figure out where in my workbench the solder is, right there. And we'll tin this. And then we'll just solder it right on. Okay, so there's our positive lead. Our negative lead, we'll just run it right down the chassis here. It's going to go right here. Makes for a pretty nice, neat wiring job. Same thing, we'll just tin this. And then we'll just, let's see if we can too good with my left hand soldering, but there we go. Okay, so that now has our on and off switch running to our speed control, and we're going to run these two wires here down, and we will just connect those to the motor wires. If I wanted to get really tricky, I could disassemble this and solder them right to the motor, but it's just as easy to solder these together like this. So I'll go ahead and strip these and solder them together. And boy, that makes for a clean installation. So here's the chassis complete. I used a hot glue gun to just kind of tack down the wiring to keep everything neat and clean. I put some batteries in it, so turn the radio on here. Turn this on. We have steering. We have throttle forward, throttle reverse. These Bayer speed controls are just fabulous at low speed. Super smooth, and this thing is wicked fast. So yeah, it it turned out actually fantastic, and it was really pretty easy. Since I've got a 6-channel receiver in here, I'm going to go ahead and put some lights in. I'll use one of these electronic switches. Since I have a 6-channel radio, I'll put it on a switch, and I'm going to put a couple of high-intensity 3mm lights in the front and a couple red lights in the back. So we'll wire that up, and then we can throw the body back on. The lights that came with the body don't have any built-in resistors. The resistors were actually built into this little circuit board, which is now garbage. So I'm going to use some of the lights that we sell on Hobbyconcepts. These are the high-intensity 3mm whites. They'll snap in the same place. So those will be the headlights. And then we're going to use some standard intensity reds back here in the back. And they'll snap in place. And when the body goes on, it locks them in. And then this electronic switch will just plug into channel 6 up here, and then all the negatives will wire together to this negative, all the positives will wire together to this positive, and then we'll have a switched input from the radios. I'm going to go ahead and do a little wiring here. I'll come back. So now I've taken all the lights and wired all that up, so it's complete. My switch here will turn on the lights. Very simple, just on or off. But I wanted to just keep this kind of just a simple, neat little truck. However, I discovered the back door even opens, and there's room in there for a nice speaker, and there's room up underneath here for a Bayer USM sound and light system. So this one here is going to be just a very simple build, I think the way most people would do it, actually the way I would mostly do it. But I am going to, so I'm going to put the black body on this one, and then this white one I'm going to install digital sound, digital lights. I'll put dash lights and dome lights, underglow lights, headlights, turn signals, brake lights, the whole bit. I'm sure I can fit everything in here, and I will do a second one. I'll do a separate video on that. So let me get that black body off the chassis. We'll put it back together and see how it turns out. So there we go with the body back on. It works really nice. Runs great. Drives nice. The lights look good. So that's it all converted. I thought it was pretty easy, and I really like it. Well, there we have it. Little Mercedes from Rastar converted to good RC equipment. That was an easy conversion, and it's really nice to be able to have some 14 scale vehicles to go with the trucks. This will look good on the back of a rollback truck. These things are beautiful. And the brake discs, the little red brake calipers, all the little details, the opening doors. Just really a nice vehicle, especially with good radio equipment now. So I plan on doing a bunch more of these. In fact, an upcoming video, check this out. This is the same vehicle except with Bayer sound and lights, which should be pretty awesome. We'll get to that video here pretty soon. But today, this is the conversion thing. You really only need a couple things: metal gear micro servo, a Bayer miniature speed control, and a decent radio of some type. So there you go. Thanks for watching. Thumbs up, please. Those help me with the YouTube rankings. Check out hobbyconcepts.net for servos and speed controls and all the other little doodads in here. And then check on Amazon or eBay for these Rastar vehicles. They make quite a selection. So there you go. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.